The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 17,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched species evolve from simple creatures into civilizations. They believed they understood everything about the cosmos and the beings that lived within it. But they had never encountered anything like humanity. When human explorers first made contact with the Council in the year 2347, the aliens were not impressed. Humans were young. Their technology was primitive compared to the ancient races. Their bodies were soft and fragile. They lived on a small blue planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. The Council saw them as children playing with toys they did not understand. Ambassador Al of the Empire studied the human delegation with his 6 compound eyes. He noticed how small they were. He noticed how they breathed the thin oxygen air. He noticed how their hearts beat so fast, like frightened animals. His species lived for 3,000 years. These humans barely survived a single century. What could such short-lived creatures possibly teach the galaxy? The human ambassador was a woman named Sarah. She stood before the massive council chamber, surrounded by beings that towered over her. Some had scales, some had tentacles, some existed as clouds of pure energy, but Sarah did not show fear. She smiled politely and spoke with calm confidence. She explained that humanity wanted peace. They wanted to trade and learn. They wanted to join the galactic community as friends and partners, but she also delivered a warning. It was a simple warning, spoken without anger or threat. She told the Council that humanity would defend itself if attacked. She told them that her people had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events. She told them that humans had a saying on Earth: "Do not wake the sleeping giant." The Council members laughed. Ambassador Al made a sound that his species used to express amusement at foolish things. The delegation clicked their mandibles in mockery. The energy beings pulsed with bright colors of entertainment. They had heard threats before. Every young species believed they were special. Every new civilization thought they could challenge the established order. History had proven them all wrong. Over the next 50 years, humanity proved to be useful but unremarkable in the eyes of the Council. Humans traded goods. They shared their music and art, which some aliens found interesting. They worked hard and built small colonies on distant worlds, but they remained in the lower class of galactic society. They were tolerated but never respected. Then the Empire decided they wanted Earth. The blue planet sat in a strategic location. It had abundant water and minerals. More importantly, claiming Earth would send a message to other young species. It would remind the galaxy who held real power. Ambassador Al believed the conquest would take less than one standard rotation. His military advisors told him that human weapons were laughable. Their ships were slow. Their soldiers were weak. Victory was guaranteed. Before the invasion began, Ambassador Sarah requested an emergency meeting with the Council. She was old now, her hair white and her face lined with age, but her eyes remained sharp and her voice remained steady. She stood before the same chamber where she had spoken 50 years earlier. She reminded them of her warning. She told them that humanity did not want this war. She explained that her people had spent decades preparing for this possibility because they understood that peaceful intentions meant nothing without the strength to defend them. She begged them to reconsider. She practically pleaded with them to choose diplomacy instead of violence. Ambassador Al dismissed her words. He called her species weak and primitive. He announced that the fleet would depart within one cycle. He told her that humanity should prepare to become a servant race within his empire. The Council did nothing. They watched in silence as one of their oldest members prepared to crush the first attack force consisted of 200 warships. They were massive vessels, each one capable of destroying a continent. They had conquered dozens of worlds using this same fleet. Their commanders were veterans of countless campaigns. They expected the human defenders to flee at the sight of such overwhelming power. What they found instead was silence. Earth's orbital space was empty. No defending fleet appeared. No weapons fired. The commanders laughed and began their descent toward the major cities. They assumed the humans had abandoned there in terror. They were wrong. The first ship to enter Earth's atmosphere exploded without warning. Then the second. Then the third. Within minutes, 40 warships had been destroyed by weapons the aliens could not detect or understand. The commanders screamed orders. They activated their shields. They scanned for the source of the attacks. They found nothing but death. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. While the galaxy dismissed them as primitive, human scientists had developed weapons that the Council could not imagine. They had created defense systems hidden within the planet itself. They had built ships that could move faster than sensors could track. They had learned everything about their potential enemies while revealing nothing about their true capabilities. The Battle of Earth lasted 17 hours. The lost 187 ships. Only 13 managed to escape back to their empire. Those survivors carried a message that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans had been playing weak. The humans had been hiding their strength. The sleeping giant was awake. Ambassador Al refused to accept defeat. He gathered the largest fleet in history. 3,000 warships launched toward Earth, accompanied by troop transports carrying millions of soldiers. He declared that humanity would be erased from existence. He promised to burn their planet until nothing remained but ash and memory. The human response came not from Earth, but from the darkness of space itself. Humanity had not only been building defenses, they had been building an empire of their own, hidden in the shadows where no one thought to look. They had colonized worlds that the Council had marked as uninhabitable. They had constructed shipyards in asteroid fields that sensors could not penetrate. They had recruited allies among the species that the Council had oppressed for. When the Grand Fleet was 3 days from Earth, they encountered the true human armada. 10,000 ships emerged from hiding. They were sleek and fast and deadly. They carried weapons that made the arsenal look like children's toys, and they were commanded by admirals who had studied every war in galactic history, learning from the mistakes of others. The battle was not even close. The fleet was surrounded and systematically destroyed. Admiral commanded the human forces with cold precision. He offered the enemy chances to surrender, and when those offers were refused, he showed no mercy. His tactical genius turned what should have been an epic confrontation into a one-sided slaughter. By the end of the engagement, they had lost everything. Their emperor was captured. There was defenseless. Their empire collapsed within weeks. The Galactic Council watched in stunned disbelief. They had never seen a species rise so quickly. They had never witnessed such complete military dominance. The beings who had laughed at humanity 50 years earlier now looked upon the human ambassadors with something they had not felt in: fear. Ambassador Sarah had died peacefully on Earth during the war, but her grandson David now stood where she had stood so many years before. He was young and strong, with his grandmother's sharp eyes and steady voice. Behind him stood a delegation of human officers and scientists, representing a civilization that had proven itself in fire and blood. David did not gloat. He did not threaten revenge against those who had dismissed his species. Instead, he repeated the same message his grandmother had delivered when humanity first arrived on the galactic stage. Humanity wanted peace. They wanted to trade and learn. They wanted to be friends and partners with all species who respected their right to exist. But he added something new to the message. He explained that humanity had learned important lessons from the war. They had learned that the galaxy did not respect weakness. They had learned that peaceful intentions required powerful support. Most importantly, they had learned that warnings should never be ignored. The oppressed species of the galaxy began to rally around humanity. The slave races that the Council had exploited for thousands of years saw hope for the first time. The smaller civilizations that had been bullied by larger empires found protectors willing to stand beside them. Humanity did not seek to replace the old order with their own tyranny. They sought to build something better. Within a century, the Galactic Council was dissolved. A new organization called the United Species Assembly took its place, with humanity as one of its founding members. The ancient empires that had once ruled with absolute power now shared authority with species they had once considered beneath notice. The galaxy changed because a young civilization from a small blue planet had refused to be intimidated. Historians would later debate what made humanity different. Some said it was their short, which forced them to think quickly and act decisively. Others pointed to their evolutionary history as persistence predators, beings who never gave up once they chose a goal. A few suggested that humans possessed some spark of creativity or determination that other species lacked. The truth was simpler than any theory could explain. Humanity was not special because of any single trait. They were special because they refused to accept the roles that others assigned to them. They refused to be weak just because they were young. They refused to be inferior just because they were different. And when they gave warnings, they meant every single word. The galaxy learned this lesson through pain and fire. The Empire became a cautionary tale told to young diplomats throughout the stars. When humans say they will defend themselves, believe them. When humans warn you about consequences, take those words seriously. Because if you ignore them, if you dismiss their warnings as empty threats from a primitive species, you will discover the terrible truth that so many have learned before you. Humanity does not make threats, they make promises, and they always keep their promises, no matter what the cost might be. The sleeping giant never truly sleeps. It only waits for foolish enemies to wake it, and once awakened, it does not rest until justice has been delivered. This is why humanity survived. This is why humanity thrived. And this is why the galaxy finally learned to listen when the small creatures from Earth stood before them and spoke their simple, honest words of warning. They ignored the warning, and humanity made the consequences inevitable.